welcome. Come on in. Come on in. And thank you for coming to the channel, checking it out. We going right back into Death of the West, right we left off. Chapter 3, Catechisms. Oh, yeah. Bad, y'all. It's kind of loud. Catechisms of the Revolution. Yep. Chapter 3. This is an extension of Learn With Me slash pick up a book. Those that know, check it out. If you don't know, check out the last episode or last post. This is music I don't own the rights to. Obviously, it's John Lennon. Go ahead and vibe to it. As we get into it, and it says, the equality the revolution preaches is a corruption of Jefferson's idea. Quote, all men are created equal, end quote. Jefferson meant that all were endowed by their creator with the same right to life, liberty, and property, and all must be equal under the law. He rejected egalitarianism. As he wrote John Adams in 1813, quote, I agree with you that there is a natural aristocracy among men. The grounds of this are virtue and talent, measured by the virtues, end quote. Measured by virtues and talent is more true to say that no two men were ever, were ever created equal. What America is about is not equality of condition or equality of result, but freedom. So a natural aristocracy of ability, achievement, virtue, and excellence, from athletics to the arts to the academy, can rise to lead, inspire, and set an example for us all to follow and a mark for us to all aim at. Hierarchies are as natural as they are essential. Consider the American Institution of Excellence, from Microsoft to the New York Yankees to the U.S. Marine Corps to the Mayo Clinic. How many run? How many are run on one person, one vote principle? None. A history demonstrates all people. Excuse me. As history demonstrates, all peoples, cultures, and civilizations are not equal. Some have achieved greatness, often, often others never. All lifestyles are not equal. All religions are not equal. All ideas are not equal. Indeed, what is true martyrdom, but that most eloquent and compelling, all of the testimonies that all ideas are not equal. While all ideas have a right to be heard, none has an automatic right to be respected. The First Amendment requires that we tolerate the false as well as the true. Mm. Jude, pick it up. The foolish as well as the wise, but nations and societies advance by separating the wheat from the chaff and the discarding the chaff. The revolution's idea of equality is ideological, utopian, absurd, and ultimately ruinous. Only a society adrift would award the black berets of rangers who have volunteered to take the greatest risk and gone through the most arduous training to every cook, clerk, and bottle washer in the army. Was it not Lord Acton, who said that if democracy dies, it is always equality that kills it? Ain't that something? This base, this debased form of equality traces its paternity to the French and not the American Revolution. The 19th century socialists, not the 18th century American patriots. Indeed, as all men are endowed differently with the gifts, talents, and virtues, the only way to achieve equality of result is tyranny, and that is not America. Those who endlessly revise scholastic aptitude tests because the results collide with their preconceptions, then give extra points to students based on ethnicity, then throw the test out because they still do not yield the desired result the desired results. Our hopeless ideologues whose false ideas about human nature will never survive their first collision with reality. The equality the revolution teaches may be found in the final results of the caucus race in Alice's adventure in Wonderland. After all the participants had all run around in circles for half an hour, they asked, "But who has won?" And the dodo says, "Everybody has won, and all shall have prizes." Mere tolerance, said G.K. Chesterton, quote, "is the virtue of men who no longer believe in anything," end quote. But our new faith is tolerant only about what is considered inconsequential: sex, pornography, filthy language, boorish manner, slovenly dress, and obscene art. It has no tolerance for those who defy its secularist dogmas. In the new dispensation, you can make a movie depicting Jesus Christ as a wimp or who lusts after Mary Magdalene as the as in the last temptation of Christ, but suggest a link between heredity and intelligence, as Charles Murray did in The Bell Curve, and you will learn that it means to cross the revolution. A local druggist may sell condoms to 13-year-olds, but sell cigarettes to the same kid, and you will be prosecuted for endangering the health and imperiling their morals. Books that proclaim that, excuse me, books that proclaim that, quote, God is dead, end quote, or that St. Paul was a homosexual, or celibacy is crippling, or that Pius the 12th was Hitler's pope, will attract warm views for boldness, creativity, and irreverence, but slip and use a racial slur as Senator Byrd did, or vulgarism as about homosexualism, excuse me, as Rep. Dick Armey famously did in his Malpropism, Barney Fag, and you will not escape the whipping post. In the 19th century, blasphemy was a crime in many states. Today, blasphemy, vulgarity, and obscenities are acceptable even on prime time, but ethnic humor is hate speech that must be punished severely. We can save the Baptists, said Darwinist Dave Dennett, but not if it means tolerating the deliberate misinforming of children about the natural world. Dennett warns creationists, quote, "You are free to preserve or create any religious creed you wish, so long as it does not become a public nuisance. Those who will not accommodate, will not temper, who insist on keeping only the purest and wildest strains of their heritage alive, we shall be obliged reluctantly to cage or disarm." End quote. There is a militant spirit of the modernist orthodoxy, to hate crimes. Like any religion, the new dispensation has its own catalog of moral crimes. The most odious are hate crimes, assaults motivated by hatred of a victim's color, creed, national origin, or sexual orientation. Now, clearly, the murders of James Boyd and Matthew Shepard were cowardly and contemptible acts that merit the maximum punishment. But why were these two murdered? Why were these two murderers of the 15,000 committed each year made a cause of special denunciation by our political and cultural elites? After all, the killers were nobodies. In the case of Byrd, ex-cons on high on drugs. In the case of Shepard, thugs and nonities. I knew Matthew Shepard too. That's fair. True, the killing of Bird tied to a truck and dragged to his death was particularly gruesome, but that did not qualify it as a hate crime. It was a hate crime because Bird was black and his killers chose him because he was black. Shepard was beaten unconsciously and chained to a fence in the freezing countryside after he made sexual advances to one of the two thugs who then decided to rob and kill him. His murder was a hate crime because Shepard was a homosexual and his killers were white heterosexual enraged that one of them had been propositioned. Had Shepard been murdered in the same brutal fashion by ex lovers, his killing would not have qualified as a hate crime, nor would his death have gotten presidential notice. All of us have biases, so let the author concede his. Had the killers of Matthew Shepard chosen a 16-year-old rather than a 21-year-old gay man, her rape murder would have been, to me, an even greater evil. But the killers in both cases should suffer the same penalty, as if killers of James Byrd had been, and if, excuse me, killers of James Byrd had been black or Byrd white, his dragging death would have been an equally vicious atrocity justifying the same penalty. Why were these two cruel murders signaled out by the president and the press? Because they fit the profile perfectly. Mm. It's a script. In the Catechism of the Revolution, the murderer of homosexuals because they are gay and of blacks because they are black are the worst of crimes, worse even than the rape and murder of a child. How do we know? Less than a year after Shepard's murder, two men in Arkansas were charged in the murder of a 13-year-old Jessica Dirkshing, Dirkissing, excuse me. Here are the details as reported by the Associated Press. According to the police, David Carpenter Jr., 38, and Joshua Brown, 22, drugged and blindfolded Jesse Dirkheising, gagged him with underwear and strapped him to a mattress face down with duct tape and belts. Then the boy was repeatedly raped and sodomized with various objects before he suffocated because of the position he was in, investigators said. At the apartment, the police found handwritten instructions and a diagram of how to position the boy. Other notes described apparently unfulfilled fantasies of molesting other children. On the night of Jesse's death, Brown repeatedly raped the boy while Carpenter watched, police said. Brown took a break to eat a sandwich and noticed the boy had stopped breathing. Carpenter and Brown were lovers, and the former masturbated as Brown raped the boy. Yet the torture and rape uh, got almost no national press. Why? Because this was a sex crime, not a hate crime, and because to show homosexuals in acts of sadistic barbarianism does not fit the villain victim script of our cultural elite. To spotlight the brutality of Carpenter and Brown would have set back the cause, right? Media critics Brent Bozell. Had Jesse Dirkheising been shot inside his Arkansas school, he would have been an immediate national story. Had he been openly gay and his attackers heterosexual, the crime would have led all the news networks. But no liberal media outlet would dare to be the first to tell a grisly murder story which has it as its villains two gay men. Hmm, weird. When Brown's trial was held in Washington Times, almost none among national newspapers reported the proceedings. The discrepancy in national coverage of the Shepherd and Dershing, murders isn't just real, wrote Alan Sullivan, a homosexual and a columnist for the News Republic. It's staggering. Sullivan found 3,000 stories on Shepard's murder in a search of Nexus database for the first month after the killing, but only 46 stories on the slaying of Jesse Dirkheisen. Fox News was the only network to report on Brown's murder and trial conviction. The big media have converted into a communications arm of the revolution. I'm gonna leave it right there. He said the big media have been converted into a communications arm of the revolution. That means they got them big, long guns, big long guns. You know what I'm saying? Mm, mm. Ain't playing. Death of the West, we coming back with it. We still on chapter 3, Catechisms of the Revolution. We're gonna come back with it. That's it's getting interesting, getting interesting. Appreciate y'all. All Black Everything. Like it, subscribe, share it, do all that. Appreciate you. Peace and love. Black power, black love. Man.